So it looks like Canon is trying to crowdfund this tiny clippable camera. First of all, I don't know why Canon is trying to crowdfund this brand new camera. I'm not sure if Canon is stably financial or what the case is, but it is confirmed that they are trying to crowdfund this camera. Maybe they don't want to take a chance on it, or maybe they're just trying to see if people will actually want to buy this thing. So by crowdfunding it, they can see how many people are interested in this product in the first place. But yes, Canon is actually making a brand new camera, and it's actually not what you're thinking. And I actually want to talk about this story because I think this is very interesting and very cool. And it's not your traditional camera like a point and shoot camera, like a DSLR camera, a mirrorless camera. It's something totally off the rails, and it's something pretty unique. It's not too crazy, but it is something very unique, and this definitely caught my attention in the tech space. So let's talk about this camera really quickly. It looks like Canon is actually crowdfunding a tiny clippable camera that connects to your phone, and here's what the camera actually looks like, because they do already have pictures of this actual camera. You can see from these pictures here, it does look like this camera, first of all, is going to come in a couple of different colors. You can see right here we do have two colors of pink/purple, and then we have this bright green color. So that's very cool when it comes to different colors. So you do get options when it comes to this camera specifically. And then one thing a lot of people are actually noting when it comes to this camera specifically, you can see that this camera does look like it's going to be kind of like a USB thumb drive. So you can see the shape of this and the size of this thing is going to be very small, very lightweight, and very portable at the same time. And just like the name implies, the clippable camera, the reason they're actually calling it a clippable camera is because on one of the sides you actually have a clip, kind of like a carabiner. It pretty much is going to work like a carabiner as far as I'm aware, and as far as I'm getting from this article. It is going to be clippable to different objects, so that's very cool. So let's say for instance you have a backpack, or you have belt clips on your jeans, of course you can clip it onto that, and maybe anything else you want to use a carabiner on, and that's going to be very cool. And I definitely like the design of this Canon clippable camera overall. I love the fact that they're going with all these crazy colors, these very bright poppy colors, kind of like the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, which you guys know are very bright, very out there. They just scream attention, and I definitely love this. I can see what type of people they're trying to market this camera to, and I can see a lot of people, maybe teenagers getting attracted to this, young adults getting attracted to this, people who love just things that pop and things like that. So you can see this looks like it's going to be some type of very playful camera from actual Canon, and it looks like it's going to be fairly good. Now let's actually talk about the specs when it comes to this camera. First off, it looks like they are going to be using Indiegogo specifically to get the crowdfunding from this. They're not using Kickstarter or anything else, so just take that in mind, or keep that in mind as you're thinking about this camera. They are using Indiegogo again. And then here's some of the actual specs. First off, it looks like, I think they do have an actual name for this, not just a tiny clippable camera. It looks like from this article, the name of this product is going to be called the IV recorder, so IV Rec for short. And it looks like for the pictures, it is going to shoot 13 megapixels and have a 1 1/3 inch CMOS sensor. Now keep in mind, a lot of things play into the aspect of how well it's actually going to take pictures. You can't just say that 13 megapixels is a lot of pictures. Same thing with the sensor. You really have to try this for yourself and see how good the lens is, how good everything plays nicely, and things like that. There's a whole bunch of different factors than just looking at the tech specs on this actual camera, but it is nice to know it can take pictures up to 13 megapixels with a 1 1/3 inch CMOS sensor. And then alongside the pictures that this thing is capable of taking, it will actually allow you to record video as well. So you can see it's going to record video up to 1080p, 60 frames per second. You're probably asking the question, why does this thing not shoot 4K? Well, I think there's a number of reasons why Canon doesn't want this thing to shoot 4K. One obvious reason is 4K will actually drain more battery. Maybe that's the reason, but I know one reason why Canon wouldn't want to use 4K on this camera for video recording is the fact that that will make the camera actually cost more, and maybe they're trying to keep the price of this thing down to where a lot of consumers can buy this, and they want to keep it at a relatively good price point. So I think 1080p is perfectly acceptable. Now, if they went with something like, for instance, 720p, 480p, I think a lot of people would not accept that nowadays, because because you do have to realize 720p is pretty much not too acceptable nowadays. It is somewhat grainy to some extent. Of course, 720p is still HD, but I think the sweet spot, most people will agree, 1080p. 1080p nowadays is still acceptable and still very good, and most people don't mind 1080p. So I think going with 1080p specifically is the right way to go for a camera like this, which you can see this is not one of those cameras you buy like a DSLR camera, a point-and-shoot camera, or a mirrorless camera where you want the best performance, but you also don't want the worst performance. So 1080p 60 is very nice. And then to top off this whole package that Canon has for this clippable camera called the Ivy Recorder, it looks like this thing is also going to be waterproof, which is really amazing. It looks like this is going to be waterproof for up to 3 minutes for depths up to 3 feet or 1 meter. So that's absolutely amazing that this thing is going to be, first of all, clippable, is going to have really bright colors, and it's also going to be a camera that is going to be waterproof. So you can see this thing is looking like it's actually going to be a very cool camera when this thing actually hits the market. Now, when it actually comes to storage options for this thing, I don't think we actually know what type of storage this is going to have. Is it going to be like some of those cameras back in the day, like for instance the Sony Bloggy Touch, which had internal memory and you had no way to add memory cards like a micro SD card and things like that? Or is it going to have a micro SD card slot? Or is it going to have both when it comes to storage options? Who really knows what the storage options are going to be when it comes to this Canon clippable camera? Who really knows? Honestly, if you ask me, I would be okay if they had built-in storage, if they gave us enough storage, like maybe if they gave us 32 gig of memory or 16 gig of memory, I would be okay. But maybe if they gave us things like 8 gig of memory or 4 gig of memory, that wouldn't be all too well. Who knows what Canon might actually do for this camera? They could put internal memory in this and then give us options for, let's say, people who don't take too much photo. Maybe they'll take the 8 gig version, and then somebody who uses this all the time may want a 16 gig version or a 32 gig version. Or they could just solve this whole problem by giving us a micro SD card slot, because then you can choose what type of memory you want and you always have a removable memory, and that would be much more practical in my opinion. I think that would be cool, but who really knows? It just depends on how much they're willing to spend on this camera, how much they're really trying to hype this camera up and things like that. But overall, I like the design of this. Overall, I like almost everything about this camera. This definitely looks like a camera I can use in my day-to-day life for doing a lot of different things. Now, the question is, who is this camera actually for? I think this could be for a lot of different consumers. You do have to realize maybe if you're a vlogger, this could be a very good camera because there is places this camera will go where other cameras won't go. This thing is waterproof. This thing does have a carabiner clip pretty much, so you can put this on a backpack. You can put this on your belt. You can put this on a lot of different objects with the carabiner that opens and closes. So that's very cool. So I can see a lot of different people actually attaching to this camera. Now, the one thing about this camera, which is actually pretty cool, which I didn't even mention yet, is the fact that you can actually connect this camera to your smartphone. According to all the leaks and all the rumors that are currently out there on this camera, it looks like you will be able to connect this to your smartphone. Now, what can you do on the smartphone? Well, they already confirmed you're going to be able to use your smartphone as a viewfinder and as an LCD screen to line up your shots and things like this, because if we go back to the actual images of this thing, you can see nowhere on the body, and they already pretty much confirmed there's not going to be an LCD, there's not going to be a viewfinder on this whatsoever. It's pretty much point and shoot. That also brings me to my next point. I wonder how wide the lens is going to be on this, because if you're going to be using something like this, you would want a pretty wide angle lens just because you want to make sure everything's in shot. But maybe they don't necessarily care about the wide angle lens because they will actually allow you to connect it to your smartphone. So maybe by connecting to your smartphone, they don't care how wide the lens is. Maybe that's what they intended you to do with this. Use your smartphone as an LCD or as a viewfinder to line up your shot when it actually comes to this actual camera itself. And then it looks like there's actually one more picture which I didn't even show. It does look like there is going to be some type of dial on this actual product. You can see there's an off on it. There's the photo mode, there's the video mode, there's a multi-function mode, and I think there's a Wi-Fi switch on it, or a connection switch that will allow you to put this in some kind of connection mode, which will actually allow you to connect it to your smart device or your smartphone, which is pretty cool. Overall, this is definitely shaping up to be one pretty cool camera. Now, we don't have any information on how much this is actually going to cost. people, so we don't know what it's going to cost. That will really depend on how many people pick this thing up and if you're actually going to buy this thing, because nowadays I don't necessarily know who this camera is actually for. Is this for the mainstream consumer, or is this for the hardcore consumer? Honestly, nowadays in the world that we live in, a lot of people already have some type of camera in their pocket when it comes to their smartphones. So many people have smartphones nowadays. Is this camera actually practical, and are you actually going to buy this thing? I think for a lot of people out here, they may not even want to buy something like this even for $100 and some or $200 and some, because, well, they already have a smartphone in their pocket. And you do have to realize with smartphones nowadays, so many smartphones take amazing pictures, and a lot of times it's more convenient to only carry one device like your smartphone on you that takes amazing pictures and amazing videos. And then on top of that, you can share it to social media and it already fits in your pocket. And then you do have to realize as well, when you have a smartphone in your pocket, you pretty much have a multi-function device, not just a camera, not just a phone, an MP3 player, a GPS. You have all these different devices in one device, which makes smartphones pretty much the ultimate device. So why would you ever want to carry this? But like I said, going back earlier to the video, there's a number of different applications and a number of different reasons to why somebody would buy this. Maybe you're a YouTuber who vlogs. Maybe you want to take family videos. Maybe you're worried about your smartphone, so you want to leave your smartphone back in certain situations. Maybe you're hiking, you're camping, you're going to the beach. Remember, this Canon tiny clippable camera is going to be waterproof as well. So you can see there is going to be a number of different reasons to why somebody may actually pick this up, even though they already have a smartphone that does take amazing smartphone pictures and also takes amazing video on their smartphone. There is reasons for this. Again, I just want to make this clear. It will depend on how Canon actually markets this, what type of people do they market this to, and ultimately it comes down to the price. The price is going to be a very big determining factor on how much people are willing to spend and how much people are willing to buy this for, and if they're going to buy this at all. If this comes out on the market and it's just too expensive for what it is, $400, $500, $600, I can see a lot of people not gravitating towards this because that's just a little bit too expensive, if you ask me, when there's other cameras that have more functions and more things to them when it comes to actual point and shoot cameras, when it comes to mirrorless, when it comes to DSLR. You do have to keep your expectations low, but this camera definitely does remind me of things like the flip camera. It also reminds me of the Sony Bloggy Touch, those type of cameras. So I would assume this thing wouldn't be all too expensive, but who really knows how much this is going to be. If I was really to price this thing right now, I would definitely price this somewhere around the range of maybe $150, $200, maybe tops $250, maybe $300. But honestly, I think for what this thing is, I don't see it being anywhere near $300. Even $250, in my opinion, is a stretch. But I can still see those being viable for Canon, and I can see them actually charging it. If they charge something like $500, $600, then in my opinion, I think this is going to be dead in the water. That's just me. I think that's just way too expensive for what it is, because you do have to realize you can also buy older cameras, maybe 3, 4, 5 years at this point, that shoot way better pictures than this probably is ever going to shoot. So you do have to keep your expectations in check. But I definitely understand where Canon is trying to go with this camera. They're trying to market it to people who maybe are an outdoorsy type person, maybe take a lot of video, take a lot of pictures and things like that, and you don't want to worry about taking things like your DSLR, your point and shoot camera, even your smartphone to some extent on certain adventures and things like this. This really does seem like it's going to be a camera for the enthusiast that really does have a lot of adventures and really vlogs and things like that. Now, that's pretty much, I think, all that they actually covered when it comes to this pocketable Canon camera. And also, who really knows if this thing is actually going to hit the market. They may not even get enough people to actually back this thing, that this thing may be dead in the water as well. So this is not a confirmed thing at the very moment, because I don't think they even did the crowdfunding campaign for this thing at all. I think they did confirm as well, if you do back this on Indiegogo, you will get a heavy discount compared to the people who have to buy this if this does come to market. So keep that in mind. So if you are interested in this Canon camera, go ahead on the internet and just type in Canon clippable camera, and you will find this on the internet. And then you can go to the Indiegogo that Canon is set up for this thing, and you can back this thing right now if you think this thing is a very cool product from Canon. But yes, that'll do it for this video. Again, it's very interesting that Canon is actually making a tiny clippable camera. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.